Good morning. Welcome to episode number 1 of What is the ZoomTown Experiment? The idea for this experiment dates back a few years when I was working on RASI. RASI's purpose was a study in a wide variety of technologies that related to mobile robotics. It was also a study on how far I could push the Raspberry Pi 3 computers with Python. As you can tell, RASI is a bit large and very expensive, which limited some of the experimenting I wanted to do. While working with RASI, I started thinking about the concept of self-driving cars, navigation systems, and automating the whole transportation process, as opposed to humans doing much of the driving. The vast majority of problems, traffic problems, accidents and deaths are attributed to humans. So my thinking was, get the humans out of the picture and let's see if computers can do better in that world. Now, while that was a number of years ago, my current regular job requires me to drive to and from my customers, and a typical day puts me behind the windshield for about 3 hours each day. So naturally, I got to thinking about this again and came up with the ZoomTown Experiment, which is what this entire series is going to be about. As mentioned, the ZoomTown Experiment is about experimenting with the idea of an automated transportation system. Instead of using trains and buses, it would use individual vehicles like a car, which, as most people around the world know, us Americans really do love our cars and the personal space they provide for us while moving or driving around from place to place. So in this system, we would get into the car and the car takes us where we want to go. From the basic concept came the question, how can this be done with the lowest cost, the least amount of components, least amount of change in infrastructure, and how can this be explored and tested? Obviously, I can't build a city and the cars to do this full scale. That's just, silly to even consider it, but if I had the money, hey, why not, right? So the other alternative is doing a computer simulation, and that's certainly an avenue to do it. But I like more real-world experimenting, which brings me to the ZoomTown Experiment. I am proposing this concept be explored using a scaled city called ZoomTown, which you see over here. In ZoomTown, there are roads and destinations for the cars, which we refer to as zoomies, to travel around going from place to place. At the same time, other zoomies are doing the same thing. In order to automate the experiment, a central computer will act as a random destination and time scheduler to run these simulations. That way it's always in a state of, hopefully, chaos, which will really test all of the systems to make sure they're performing to what we're hoping for. What will be learned from the early simulation and tests, the final elements will be added to the experiment in hopes of making the system robust enough so that it isn't a non-stop demolition derby. Let's face it, there's an awful lot that could potentially go wrong with this whole thing from beginning to end. No doubt I will be making mistakes, most likely plenty of them. Some of the zoomies won't behave as expected. Some of the sensors may not perform as reliably as we would hope. So the only thing that is assured is unexpected things and probably crashes and perhaps even the occasional zoomie falling off the edge of the earth. There are some parameters for this experiment that I had to take into account right away. Cost and time is obviously right at the top as a primary consideration, as I don't have an endless supply of money, and it is already estimated that this experiment's probably going to cost me a couple of $1,000s by the time it runs its course, potentially even much more. Time is another consideration in that I only have the weekends to do the bulk of the work for this. I work a full-time job and it has very high demands on my time. Size impacts the experiment in a couple of ways, such as available space to have this set up all the time, and the larger it is physically, the more expensive everything will be. I'm guessing there will be about 10 to 20 Zoomies running around in ZoomTown at any given time. Technologies drive many of the parameters, and depending on the technology, the costs can get out of control very quickly. Vision systems have gotten very affordable, but it is way out of the scope of this experiment. Let's face it, if I were to put vision system on each one of these Zoomie cars, we'd probably be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So, not going to go down that road. I do want to clarify a few things based on comments from early views with my introductory videos. One of the early comments said something to the effect of, well, this should all be easy with line following, because they were noting the lines that are on the layout. Well, there are reasons why that isn't true and really won't work, but that is part of the exploration and learning during this experiment. Another suggestion was that SLAM would be perfect for this, SLAM being simultaneous localization and mapping. Very popular methodology used in autonomous robotics, industrial as well as for hobbyists, etc. But again, you're going to see as we go through this experiment, that really wouldn't work very well either. If you followed along thus far, I suspect you'll be someone that shares the curiosity with me and wants to go on this adventure. Keep watching to the end and see how you may be able to participate rather than just be an observer in this experiment. While spending some time outlining this experiment, it looks like this could easily be more than 50 individual videos. Comparing that to the PICO series I've been producing, I believe that is in the 60 or 70 video range so far. And this is realistically a continuation of that series. I just broke it out because it's very specific to the ZoomTown experiment. Not having done anything like this, I am making up a lot of this on the fly. Doing experimental presentations such as this, how this would all play out in the media of YouTube, and what all we can do with it is kind of new ground for me, and I suspect for a lot of people. I haven't seen too many things, or in truth, I haven't really looked hard, but I haven't seen anything going to the lengths and depths of this particular experiment. I plan to present this in a manner similar to the PICO series, which is a star in this experiment. The PICO is going to be right at the core of this, more specifically the PICO W. Each week or more frequently, if I have time, I will publish an episode. Each episode will cover a topic such as a sensor, an idea, a concept, a motor, a device, a gizmo, a gadget, who knows what, tests and experiments. I plan to present some foundational videos first and then start selecting and testing components in a style very similar to what I have been doing with that PICO series. I'll be explaining about this type of sensor, show some specs about it, we'll write some code, test it out, and in this case, analyze it and determine if we think it'll be a good fit for what we're trying to accomplish with that sensor. So there'll be a lot of that sort of thing. There's going to be quite a few components. I suspect not all of them will work well. Others should probably do the job quite effectively for us. Once we've got enough components together, then we're going to start working on sub-assemblies and bringing these components together, both in the physical world and, of course, in code, because eventually this is all going to be one rather large MicroPython program to run the Zoomie. And yes, that is correct. I am going to stay as true as I can with MicroPython on the PICO W. Eventually, a lot of this will all come together enough where we're going to transition the focus away from designing, engineering, and building and coding the Zoomie. And then we're going to start bringing that into the system for the whole experiment. And that's when the scheduler is going to come on and go into full development, and we'll be refining it and testing that software, and then integrating the Zoomie into the process of the experiment. This whole process, I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take. As mentioned, I can easily see us doing 50 or more videos on this. At one a week, that's a year. But how this kind of flows will be dependent on you folks and your feedback as to how it's moving along. For communications on this, as always has been, I've got commenting available on each of the videos. So we can discuss very topic-specific items in that manner. I also just created a blog. We've been posting a few news flashes, so to speak, about the introductory videos for the ZoomTown Experiment. What I would like for you to do is just post a few comments on there with regard to this particular video, just so we can test out that system for communications. Ultimately, I think that will serve as a better platform for a lot of our general communications about this experiment when it's not video topic specific. So hopefully we can kind of do some of the shakeout for this now, and if it doesn't work out, I can find an alternative before it's too late. I think there will be a lot of entertainment value in observing this experiment. However, there is another aspect of this that I want to incorporate too, and that's participation from you folks. While I was fermenting this idea during the last, maybe 4 to 6 months, I've been really thinking it through and, made a lot of progress, some early tests and so forth. But with this concept of getting the audience involved was always something that I really wanted to do from the very start. And I had some ideas, but in order to do it, I'm not sure of how I would do that. And then, of course, it dawned on me, maybe the audience doesn't want to participate and they just want me to do the presentation. If you could, in the comments below for this video, let me know how you think you might be able to or might want to participate in this experiment. I'm open for just about any ideas. Of course, depending on which rabbit holes we go down, that could certainly take up a tremendous amount of time and, unfortunately, financial resources. So I'm going to have to be very careful with how we do this because that in itself, to me, this idea of audience participation could be another whole experiment unto itself. But I think we're a fun group, and I think we all get along really good, and I think we might be able to have some fun with this idea. So I'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions on how that we might be able to do this and what you might want to participate with or at what level. In the next video, I will be explaining a lot about ZoomTown. That's the layout over here. That is really one of the major controlling factors about everything for the experiment. The size of it, the layout, the parking spaces, the width of the roads, the length of the driveways, everything about the layout really controls a lot, including how I can photograph it and film, like when all the Zoomies are running around out there. Of course, we'll want to see a whole overhead view of everything going on. Well, I need to get a camera positioned such that we can see all of that. There's a lot to everything in this experiment that's going to start and end with the size, shape, and orientation of this layout. So we're going to start with that as our first, we'll call it technical video, and that's the next one coming up. That will wrap it up. I hope that you are interested enough in this to follow along and or participate. Also, it would help tremendously if you folks can help me spread the word about the ZoomTown Experiment. As there isn't much else like it on YouTube, it is very difficult to get others to join in on the fun. And truthfully, I really need the advertising revenue. Not that it's very much. Typically, I'm looking at a couple, $2 to $3 for each one of these Pico series videos that I've created. But nonetheless, that adds up, and it does help defray the costs of projects like this. So that's going to be a huge benefit for everybody if we can get more viewers involved. And I certainly hope you can help me on that. But that'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching, and I hope you join me again next week.